If you could plan a business, you could plan a life. Emma Collins had believed that for years. The morning she closed her biggest account, she stood by the window of her office and let the city stack itself into neat, controllable lines, traffic pulsing, elevators chiming, calendars filling. 10 beats of her heart, 10 steps, 10 rules. The idea clicked into place like the last piece of a puzzle. If logic could protect her from chaos at work, perhaps it could do the same for love. The first 30 seconds of her new plan were simple. Hook yourself with a promise. She wrote it in her notebook in crisp blue ink, the 10 rules of the heart, and beneath it, Rule 1. Choose with clarity. No wandering, no guesswork. Ambition, stability, long-term vision, not a wish list. Standards. Do not tell me you're designing a flowchart for romance, Claire said, breezing in with 2 coffees and a grin that could light a rainy block. Not a flowchart, Emma answered, taking a cup. A framework. That's worse, Claire laughed, perching on the arm of the chair. What happened to chemistry? It's unreliable, Emma said. People get hurt when they drift. Claire tipped her head, amused and a little concerned. So your meet cute involves a background check? It involves intention, Emma said, opening the notebook again. Rule 2. Create a meaningful first meeting. No loud bars, no empty small talk. A place where values surface without being asked to perform. Before Claire could reply, the agency's open space erupted in cheers. The Tadmore Estates win meant security for another year, a cleaner runway for growth. Emma acknowledged the applause with a smile. But she lived for the quiet minutes after a victory, the part where you sit with the result and feel the world settle into order. She sipped coffee. She breathed. And then Claire cleared her throat. Our venue canceled, Claire said. Kitchen fire. We need a new space for the appreciation party. 2 weeks. Emma's mind pivoted. We'll find something with texture, she said. With light, air. A place we can transform, authentic but unexpected. Claire brightened. There's a family orchard outside town. Old barn. They're struggling, but it's charming. Schedule it, Emma said. Tomorrow. Orchard means dirt, Claire warned, laughing. I own soap, Emma said. And that was that. She spent the afternoon tightening copy for a campaign, pleased by how numbers gave her feelings a spine. The steadiness soothed her, but the day still offered a small surprise. In the lobby, she ran into Nick Reed, the new attorney moving into the building. Clean lines, unfailingly polite, a conversation that flowed like water over glass. He asked if she'd show him the city like a local would. She agreed. He smiled, promised to cook one night, and disappeared into the elevator with the easy grace of someone who trusted every door to open. That evening, Emma walked home through streets that mirrored her energy, focused, bright, productive. She double-checked tomorrow's schedule, set an early alarm, and looked once more at the words on the first page of her notebook. The plan gave her a quiet sense of safety she could almost touch. She slept well. The sky was lacquered blue when she turned off the highway the next morning. The city's edges softened into fences and rows, then into trees that stood in disciplined lines, leaves whispering secrets to the light. Emma stepped from the car and noticed the air, first warm wood, damp soil, and old sweetness, as if the place exhaled memory. A woman with silver-threaded hair and a flour-dusted apron waved from the porch. You must be Emma. I'm Martha Moore. This is my husband, Henry. We're grateful you came. Thank you for having me, Emma said, meaning it. Inside, the farmhouse offered a museum of ordinary tenderness, a wall of sun-faded photos, a handmade quilt tossed across a chair, a wooden table nicked by years of meals and stories. Martha insisted on cider. You can't think clearly without it, and set down a plate of apple toffee cookies that made Emma feel briefly disloyal to every plan she'd ever made about sugar. We do fine when the leaves turn, Henry said, fingers wrapped around his mug. But winters stretch thin, fewer visitors now. We keep hoping folks remember. We were never much for billboards, Martha added. Word of mouth used to carry us. Emma listened. She had numbers to suggest and channels to propose. But she'd learned that brand work, when it mattered, began with witness. "Show me the barn," she asked. Henry led them along a path where the grass sighed underfoot. The barn lifted out of the field, like an old ship, weathered, dignified, still afloat. "Careful on the step," Martha warned. Emma placed her heel and slipped. A hand steadied her. Warm, firm, immediate. "City shoes," a voice said. "Welcome to our gravity." She looked up into the eyes of Josh Moore. He had the kind of presence that didn't need to announce. Itself shoulders easy, gaze steady, a smudge of dust at his cuff like a badge of belonging. He let go of her arm only when he was certain she had her balance. "Emma Collins," she said, offering a hand she hoped did not betray the jolt she felt. "Josh," he said. His grip was calloused in a way that read as evidence, not warning. He glanced at her shoes, the corner of his mouth catching. "We sell cider, not cobblestones." "Good to know," she said, and surprised herself by smiling back. Martha swatted Josh's sleeve with a dish towel. "Don't tease. Emma's here to help. Show her the space." The barn's interior was cathedral and memory. Light slanted through gaps in the boards, turning dust to glitter. Rafters arced like ribs. The scent of old wood and hay hummed at the edges. Emma stood still and let the place talk. She could see it, the event blooming from the bones. Warm lanterns along beams. Long tables dressed simply. A tasting corner that felt like a secret you were invited to share. The city had glamour. This offered gravity. "You're planning," Josh said. "I am," Emma replied. "But listening first. Listening to wood. To history," she said. "To what people feel before they know why." He studied her, interest tempered by skepticism. "And what do you think people feel here?" "Time," she said softly. "The good kind. The kind that asks you to sit down and be real." Martha's smile told Emma she'd touched the door to trust. Henry pointed them toward a storage room where old signage slept beneath canvas, and Emma photographed what might be useful. A hand-painted price board, a tin scoop that once lived in a summer of laughter, a menu with a flavor so odd it felt like a dare. She noted dimensions, wrote ideas in margins, and resisted the urge to map every second of the party. Authenticity didn't like being strangled. Back at the farmhouse, Martha set fresh scones on the table and asked Emma what a brand like theirs needed. "A heartbeat," Emma said. "A way to breathe beyond harvest. We'll build an online shop around what you already are, not what you're not. Create small batch products that travel. Design experiences in the off-season classes, tastings, small events. The story is yours. I'll help people hear it." Josh folded his arms. "Stories sell," he said, neutral as a fence post. "They connect," Emma corrected gently. "If we're honest." Martha reached for Josh's hand. He didn't pull away. Emma noticed. "Tell me," Emma said, closing her laptop. "Not the acreage, not the yield. What does this place mean to you?" Henry talked about the night lightning split. An old tree and neighbors arrived, with ladders and pie. Martha talked about children who measured themselves against the same porch post every year. Josh said very little, but when he finally did, his voice lowered. "It's quiet, that isn't empty," he said. "You can hear yourself think, and you don't mind what you hear." Emma wrote that sentence in her notebook exactly as he said it. Some lines were brand pillars, some were compass needles. This felt like both. By the time she stood to go, a shape had formed around the party that wasn't just logistics. It had weight, warmth, a reason. On the path to her car, she felt gravel shift under her heels, and she steadied herself before a hand could reach her. Josh's footsteps followed anyway. "We'll fix the doors," he said. "Clear the storage. I can sand the splinters and brace the beams. It won't be a city show." "I'm not looking for a show," Emma said. "I'm looking for true." He considered, that eyes narrowed, mouth thoughtful and nodded once, as if granting the barn permission to try again. Driving back toward the skyline, Emma expected the city to wipe the orchard from her mind. It didn't. Cinnamon rode with her. The image of rafters hung behind her eyes like a superimposed frame. She told herself it was professional curiosity, the ordinary hum that followed any good site visit. She told herself lots of things. That evening, Nick texted to confirm dinner later in the week. Homemade, he promised, a sauce he'd perfected during law school. He added a line that fit neatly into Rule 3, long-term mindset. He was clear about his goals, measured in his ask, generous with logistics. Emma typed yes, and the word looked right on the screen. Before she shut down her computer, she turned to the first page of her notebook and added a short line beneath the rules. True isn't perfect. It's honest. She circled it lightly, like a thought she'd revisit when no one was looking. She switched off the office light and stepped into the hallway. The day's two worlds settling inside her, like layers of city that gleamed, a barn that breathed. The plan would guide her. The rules would keep her steady. And yet, even as she repeated them like a quiet promise, the heart private, persistent scribbled in the margins where she couldn't quite erase it. The first light of dawn crept across the Mora orchard, turning dew into silver and silence into song. From the kitchen window, Josh Moore could see the neat lines of apple trees stretching toward the horizon, each one like a page in a story his family had written for generations. The scent of damp soil and distant blossoms carried through the open window. For a moment, he simply stood there, coffee mug in hand, watching the morning breathe. He loved this place more than he'd ever admit aloud. It wasn't perfect, but it was home. Every scar on the barn, every tree planted by his grandfather's rough hands, meant something. What scared him wasn't hard work. It was watching those memories fade under the weight of bills and empty weekends. Martha's soft steps entered the kitchen behind him. "You've been up since before the rooster again," she teased, tying her faded apron. Her voice always had warmth, even when she worried. Josh smiled faintly. Someone has to get ahead of the day. She poured herself tea and looked at him the way only grandmothers do. Half love, half concern. You can't outrun life, Joshua. You can only meet it where it stands. He took a slow sip of coffee. That's what I'm doing, by never asking for help. He gave a small shrug. We're fine. Martha leaned on the counter. Your grandfather says the north orchard needs replanting. The fence behind the shed needs fixing. And our marketing is from the Stone Age. That doesn't sound fine. Josh turned toward her, his jaw tightening just slightly. We've managed this place just fine without outsiders telling us how to run it. She didn't raise her voice, she never had to. Josh, I've invited a consultant, a woman from the city. She's coming this morning. He froze. A consultant. She works with small businesses, good reputation, smart as a whip. Claire from the church group recommended her. Josh set down his mug, the sound sharp against the counter. City people don't come out here to help, Grandma. They come to change everything. Martha chuckled softly, unfazed. Maybe a little change is what we need. He ran a hand through his hair, trying to hide the flicker of frustration. You're serious? I am, she said gently. And you'll be polite. No brooding, no sarcasm. Me, he raised his eyebrows. I'm the picture of charm. Martha laughed, shaking her head. You're your grandfather's echo. That's what you are. At that moment, Henry Moore stepped through the back door, carrying a basket of apples. Did someone mention me or my charm? Both, Martha said. And you're out of apples again. Henry grinned at his grandson. We need customers, not trees. Maybe this city lady will teach us a thing or two. Josh sighed, but didn't argue. Once Martha decided something, the debate was already over. By mid-morning, the orchard was alive with movement, bees weaving through blossoms, a tractor rumbling faintly in the distance. Josh was repairing a fence post near the main path when he saw a car pull up by the gate. It was sleek, silver, and entirely out of place against the soft gold of the countryside. A woman stepped out, graceful, composed, wearing a tailored blazer and heels far too elegant for dirt roads. The moment he saw her stumble slightly on the gravel, Josh muttered under his breath, "City shoes." She steadied herself and looked around with curious eyes, the kind that tried to understand without judgment. When she spotted the farmhouse, she smiled, not the quick smile of politeness, but something genuine, cautious, searching. Martha hurried to meet her at the porch. "You must be Emma Collins." "Welcome, dear." Josh watched from a distance as they shook hands, Martha talking enthusiastically while the stranger nodded, notebook already in hand. There it was, he thought. The plan, the charts, the polite invasion. He turned back to his work until Martha called out, "Joshua, come say hello." He dusted his hands on his jeans and walked toward them, squinting slightly in the sun. Up close, Emma looked even more out of place, and yet, somehow, not uncomfortable. Her eyes carried the focus of someone who noticed everything, but said only half. "Emma, this is my grandson, Josh," Martha said proudly. "He keeps this place running." "Nice to meet you," Emma said, extending her hand. Josh hesitated for a heartbeat, then shook it. Her grip was firm, professional. "So," he said, "you're the one here to save us." Martha's eyebrows lifted in warning. Emma only smiled. "I'm not here to save anyone. Just to listen, observe, and see what can grow." Her tone surprised him. Not arrogant, not rehearsed, just calm. Martha clapped her hands. "Now, you two talk. I'll fetch cider." As she disappeared into the house, Emma turned to the old barn nearby. "This is beautiful," she murmured, walking toward it. "It feels alive." Josh followed. Alive is one word for it. Falling apart might be another. She stepped inside, her heels tapping lightly on the worn boards. Dust floated in the light that streamed through the gaps in the walls. You could host anything here. Dinners, markets, celebrations. It has history. Josh leaned against a beam. "History doesn't pay bills. Sometimes it does," Emma said, examining a cracked wooden sign resting on a crate. "If you tell it right." He crossed his arms. "You sound like an ad." "I am an ad," she replied, a trace of humor breaking through. "It's my job." For a second, he almost smiled. Almost. They spent the next half hour walking through the orchard as she asked questions about operations, sales, and community ties. She took notes faster than he could answer. Her focus impressed him, even if he'd never admit it. When she paused to take a picture of a tree with its first blossoms, Josh said quietly, "You don't seem like the type who gets dirt on her hands." "I don't mind," she said, crouching to touch a fallen apple half hidden in grass. "Sometimes you find the story in what's left behind." He watched her for a long moment before turning away, pretending to adjust the strap of his tool belt. "Stories don't fix tractors." "No," she agreed softly, standing. "But they make people care enough to come back." Before he could reply, Martha returned with 2 glasses of cider and a plate of fresh pie. "You two look like you're getting along," she said. Oblivious to the faint tension, Emma smiled. "We're just discussing perspectives." Josh muttered, "That's one word for it." Martha ignored him and handed them both pie. "Eat. Everything's better on a full stomach." Later, as Emma prepared to leave, she turned back toward the fields. "There's something special here, Josh," she said. "Not just a business, a heartbeat. You just don't hear it anymore because you're too close to the noise." He frowned slightly. "And you think you can fix that?" She met his eyes. "I don't think it's broken. Just quiet." Her car disappeared down the road, leaving a trail of dust that shimmered in the sun. Josh stood there for a long moment, the wind tugging at his shirt, the faint sound of bees filling the stillness. Martha joined him on the porch, her face soft with knowing. "She's something, isn't she?" Josh didn't answer. He looked back at the barn, at the trees, at everything he thought he understood. The orchard had always been predictable. Seasons, cycles, the slow rhythm of care and harvest. But now, with a stranger's words lingering in the air, it felt different. Like the silence between apples and wind had started to whisper again. The morning unfolded quietly, with mist curling over the orchard like a thin veil. Emma drove down the same dirt road, her heels tapping against the floor mat as she rehearsed lines in her head, numbers, ideas, a few persuasive phrases about brand identity. She was determined to keep this visit professional, efficient, predictable. But the road had other plans. A flash of sunlight caught her eyes, just as a truck came around the bend, loaded with crates of apples. Startled, she swerved slightly, tires crunching against gravel, and stopped, just in time. The truck slowed beside her, and when the driver rolled down the window, she saw him, Josh Moore, hat turned backward, eyes half amused, half concerned. "Trying to set a speed record out here?" he asked, voice teasing but calm. Emma's pulse was still racing. "I wasn't speeding. The road's narrow." He grinned faintly. "And your car's allergic to dirt, I see." She exhaled, equal parts flustered and defensive. "Some of us don't drive tractors for fun." "Fun?" Josh tilted his head, pretending to think. "More like therapy. Want a session?" Before she could respond, he nodded toward the back of her car. "You're about to get stuck if you reverse any farther. Mud's deep from last night's rain." She glanced back and realized he was right. Her perfect silver sedan wasn't made for countryside drama. Josh stepped out of his truck, walked over, and before she could protest, began pushing her car forward, with one hand braced against the trunk. "You don't have to, clearly, I do." After a few awkward seconds, the car rolled free. Emma climbed out, brushing invisible dust from her blazer. "Thank you," she said, trying to sound dignified. "Glad to help," Josh replied, smirking. "You city folks bring excitement around here. Keeps the place interesting." Interesting isn't always good. Sometimes it's necessary. Their eyes met for a beat, longer than either expected. The kind of glance that dared the other to blink first. She looked away. "I have a meeting with your grandparents," she said, clutching her notebook. "If you'll excuse me." "Sure," Josh said, leaning casually against his truck. "Try not to run over any apple trees on your way up." She ignored him, walked toward the farmhouse, and muttered under her breath, "Unbelievable." Inside, Martha welcomed her with a plate of warm scones and a smile big enough to melt anyone's guard. "You came early. Wonderful. Josh is just finishing up outside. He'll join us in a minute." "Can't wait," Emma murmured, though her tone betrayed more than politeness. Martha led her to the table where Henry was already seated, sipping coffee and reading the local paper. The kitchen smelled like cinnamon and sunshine. "I've been thinking about your ideas," Martha said, setting down the plate. "You were right, our story needs to be told. People forget what makes this place special." Emma smiled, opening her notebook. "Exactly. If we can highlight the orchard's roots, not just its products, it'll connect emotionally. That's what makes people care." Henry lowered his paper. "Emotion sells, huh?" "It invites people to belong," Emma corrected gently. He nodded slowly, intrigued. "You talk like someone who's been here a long time." "I just listen," she said softly. "Places like this have a heartbeat. You just have to notice it." Josh entered then, wiping his hands on a rag, sleeves rolled up, sunlight catching in his hair. "You're poetic today, Miss Collins," he said. Emma straightened. "Just professional." "Same difference," he said, dropping into a chair. Martha smiled between them. "Emma, tell Josh your plan for the event." Emma cleared her throat. "I'd like to host our firm's annual client gathering here next month. We'd decorate the barn, bring in lighting, tables, food stations, showcase the orchard as a creative, welcoming venue. You'd receive full compensation and exposure." Josh raised an eyebrow. "Exposure doesn't pay electricity. Last I checked," Emma stayed calm. "Payment would cover the costs. It's a win for both sides." Martha clapped her hands once, delighted. "I love it." "We've never done anything like that before." Josh hesitated. And you really think people from the city would drive out here for some rustic charm? I don't think, she said. I know. For a moment, he studied her like a riddle, part irritation, part curiosity. Then he exhaled, giving in. Fine. You can use the barn. But I'm not serving cucumber sandwiches or anything fancy. Good, Emma said. I hate cucumber sandwiches. Martha laughed, her eyes shining. Then it settled. As they discussed logistics, Emma noticed how Josh's tone softened when he spoke about the orchard. He knew every corner of it, where the first apple tree had been planted, which sections still needed better irrigation, even which branches the local kids used to climb. Beneath his stubbornness was devotion, and beneath that, something she couldn't name. When the meeting ended, she gathered her notes and turned toward the barn to take more photos. The midday sun filtered through the trees, glinting off the roof. She was adjusting her camera when she heard footsteps behind her. Need help? Josh asked. I'm fine, she replied, crouching to capture an angle. Unless you want to critique my framing too. I'd never dream of it, he said. But I should warn you, if you stand there much longer, you're in the path of falling apples. She looked up just in time to see one drop from a branch and land a few inches from her feet. Josh chuckled. Told you. She frowned, brushing hair from her face. Does everything here come with warnings? Only when you ignore them, he said, walking past her. City instincts don't work here. You have to feel the rhythm. The rhythm, she repeated. That sounds wonderfully vague. He paused, turning back with a faint smile. That's because life here doesn't fit on a checklist. Before she could respond, Martha's voice called from the porch. Emma dear, before you go, try the cider ice cream in the kitchen. It's our specialty. Emma smiled politely and nodded. But as she walked toward the house, she couldn't help glancing back. Josh was standing beneath the apple tree, hands in pockets, sunlight flickering through the leaves across his face. He looked perfectly at home and utterly unreachable. Driving away later, she tried to shake the image from her mind. He was infuriating, stubborn, impossible. Yet his words lingered in the air like the scent of apples after harvest. Somewhere between frustration and curiosity, Emma realized she was looking forward to their next argument. The week passed quickly, each day folding into the next, like pages turning in a book. Neither of them realized they were writing together. Emma spent her mornings at the agency, finalizing designs and campaigns. But every afternoon, her car found its way back to the orchard. What had started as a simple project had turned into something more intricate and far less predictable. The barn, once dull and forgotten, was slowly waking up under her direction. String lights hung from the beams, lanterns waited in boxes, and fresh boards covered the worn floors. Emma moved through the space with quiet precision, clipboard in hand, while Josh worked nearby, sanding wood and pretending not to notice how often his eyes drifted toward her. At first, their conversations were short, mechanical. Where to hang lights, how many tables, what color the banners should be. But the silences between them grew shorter, too, replaced by small remarks and teasing that neither fully admitted they enjoyed. City girl with a hammer, Josh said one afternoon, watching her struggle to hold a nail steady. That's something I didn't think I'd see. Emma didn't look up. I adapt quickly. He leaned against the post, amused. You're holding it upside down. She stopped, blinked, and frowned. I was testing your observation skills. Josh laughed quietly. Sure you were. It would have been easier if he were simply arrogant, Emma thought. But he wasn't. He was grounded, stubborn, yes, but patient, real, impossible to categorize. She didn't like how that made her feel. Unprepared, off-script, vulnerable. Martha often passed by carrying fresh cider or pies, watching them with knowing eyes. She said little, but the faint smile on her lips spoke volumes. By the end of the week, the framework of Emma's plan was ready. She sat at the table in the farmhouse with a stack of papers, showing Martha and Henry the proposal. These are the costs for materials, decorations, and staff, she explained. My firm will handle marketing and promotion. You'll receive both payment and publicity. Martha's face brightened. It sounds wonderful, dear. But Josh, leaning in the doorway, crossed his arms. And how much will this wonderful plan cost us? Emma met his gaze. Nothing. My company's covering the expenses. The party will bring new clients, but it'll also bring visitors here. It's mutually beneficial. Henry nodded approvingly. Seems fair to me. Josh, however, didn't move. What happens after the party? When the lights come down and the city people forget this place exists? They won't, Emma said. We'll keep their attention online, social media campaigns, photos, videos. You have a story, Josh. I can help you tell it. He tilted his head slightly. And how would you tell it? Emma paused. As something real, honest, a place built on heart, not just apples. That softened him almost. But his tone still carried that steady edge of caution. You can make people look, he said, but can you make them care? Emma's answer was quiet but firm. Yes. Martha placed her hands on the table. Then, it's decided. Emma will handle the event, and you, Josh, will make sure she has everything she needs. Josh looked from his grandmother to Emma, resignation flickering into reluctant amusement. Yes, ma'am, he said, half smiling. Later that afternoon, they stood outside the barn as the light turned golden over the trees. Emma checked her notes. We'll need better signage. Maybe something handcrafted, with the orchard's name burned into the wood. People love authenticity, Josh chuckled. You make everything sound like a campaign slogan. It's called branding. It's called talking fancy, he teased. You could just say sign. Emma rolled her eyes, but couldn't help smiling. You're impossible. Yet here you are. Every day, he replied, leaning on his shovel. Must mean something's working. The remark caught her off guard, too honest to brush off. She looked away, pretending to adjust a clipboard. It means I take my work seriously. Sure, he said lightly. Work. The pause that followed carried more than either wanted to unpack. They spent the rest of the day finishing repairs in silence. When the last board was nailed and the air smelled of sawdust and dusk, Emma took a step back to admire the barn. It's almost perfect, she said softly. Josh wiped his hands on his jeans. It's a barn, not a ballroom. Exactly, she replied. That's what makes it perfect. He glanced at her then, the way one looks at something familiar that suddenly feels new. You really believe that, don't you? I do, she said, meeting his gaze. Perfection isn't polished, it's truth. The words lingered in the space between them. For a moment, neither moved. The wind carried the scent of apples, warm and faintly sweet, and the last sunlight touched their faces before slipping behind the hills. Then, as if to break the spell, Josh nodded toward her shoes. You're learning. Haven't fallen once this week. Emma smiled, stepping toward her car. I plan everything, remember? He called after her, voice teasing. Then maybe stop planning so much. You might miss something worth tripping over. She didn't turn back, but the laugh that escaped her was enough to make him grin. When she drove away, Josh stood in the fading light, the barn glowing behind him. The orchard felt different somehow, like something sleeping had begun to stir. Inside her car, Emma's thoughts refused to settle. The city skyline rose ahead, sharp and orderly, but her mind stayed in the orchard, in the sound of laughter echoing off wooden beams, in the way the air had felt alive again. She had come here to design a campaign. Instead, she was being rewritten by it. For the first time in a long while, Emma closed her notebook and didn't make a list. She just drove, windows open, the cool wind carrying the faint scent of apples, and something else she couldn't quite name. Something that felt dangerously close to hope. Morning sunlight filtered through the barn's wooden slats, painting soft stripes across the floor. Emma arrived early, as she always did, her arms full of folders, sketches, and determination. Today would be about control, about progress, order, structure, the very things that made her feel safe. But control had a funny way of slipping through her fingers whenever Josh Moore was nearby. He was already there, sleeves rolled up, repairing one of the old wooden tables. His movements were calm and deliberate, like someone who'd spent his whole life making broken things whole again. "You're early," he said without looking up. "So are you." "I live here," he replied, hammer tapping rhythmically. "I work here," she said, setting down her folders. He glanced up with a grin. "For now," Emma exhaled, already sensing another battle she hadn't prepared for. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" Josh leaned against the table, watching someone try to organize nature. "A little. Someone has to bring order to the chaos," she said, opening her laptop. "That's what marketing is about, showing people there's a story worth following." He smiled faintly. "Funny thing about stories, the best ones don't start with order." She looked at him, realizing he meant more than he was saying. "And how do they start, then?" "With a mess," he said simply. "Always a mess." Emma didn't respond. She turned her attention to her notes, determined not to be drawn into another one of his country philosophy debates. But a few minutes later, Josh called from across the room, holding up an old sign he'd found buried behind a stack of crates. "Look familiar?" The hand-painted wood-red Moore's Orchard Ice Cream EST, 1982. The edges were cracked, the letters fading, but there was something timeless about it. "I didn't know you made ice cream," Emma said. Josh set the sign down carefully. "We used to. My mom loved experimenting with flavors. Apple and cinnamon, maple butter, even one with bacon. People came from all over for it." Her expression softened. "Why'd you stop?" He hesitated, eyes drifting to the floor. "Life happened." There was a silence there that didn't ask for questions. Emma nodded gently. "It's a beautiful logo. You should bring it back." He smiled faintly, but didn't answer. They worked in parallel after that, fixing small details and checking lighting angles. The barn had begun to look less like a forgotten building and more like a storybook waiting to open. Dust caught the light like golden snow. The air smelled of sawdust and apples. At one point, Emma climbed a short ladder to hang a garland across a beam. Josh steadied it without being asked, his hands firm on the wood just beside hers. She didn't look down, but she could feel the nearness of him, solid, warm, unbothered. "Careful," he said quietly. "These beams are older than both of us. I can handle it." "I know," he said. "You just forget that sometimes you don't have to." The words caught her off guard, almost making her lose her balance. Thank you," she said, a little too quickly, climbing down. Josh grinned. "See? Organized chaos. Works every time." Later that afternoon, Martha brought lunch sandwiches wrapped in parchment, still warm from the oven. "You two look busy," she said cheerfully, setting the basket on a crate. "Trying to keep up with your grandson," Emma said, smiling. "Oh, good luck with that," Martha replied. "He was born stubborn." Josh laughed. "And you raised me that way." "I raised you to care," Martha said, kissing his cheek. Then, turning to Emma, she added softly, "Don't let him fool you. He acts tough, but he's got his heart tied to this place like a root in the ground." Emma smiled, unsure how to respond. After lunch, Josh walked with her through the orchard to show the best spots for guests to take photos. The trees rustled gently above them, and bees floated lazily in the warm air. It was peaceful in a way Emma hadn't felt in years. "You know," she said, glancing at him, "when I first came here, I thought this was just another project, something to fix, polish, and move on. And now," she hesitated, "now it feels alive. Like I'm the one being fixed." Josh stopped walking, turning to her. "That's the thing about roots," he said. "They don't move, but they change everything around them." Emma met his eyes, and for the first time, she didn't try to fill the silence. She let it linger, like a song she didn't want to end. By the time they returned to the barn, evening had settled softly over the orchard. The air glowed with that golden stillness that lives only between day and night. Emma gathered her things, ready to leave, when Josh called after her. "Hey," she turned. "I was thinking," he said, scratching the back of his neck. "You were right about one thing. Only one." He smiled. "About stories. Maybe people just need to be reminded that they still matter. That their small corners of the world are worth noticing." Her heart gave a quiet thump. "That's exactly what I believe." "Then maybe," he said, meeting her gaze, "we're not as different as we thought." Emma didn't know what to say. For once, the planner in her went silent. She just smiled, softly, honestly. As she drove away that evening, she realized her hands weren't reaching for her notebook. There were no new rules to write, no bullet points to organize. The silence in her car didn't feel empty, felt full. And in that quiet fullness, Emma finally admitted what she'd been avoiding all along. Some stories aren't designed, they just grow. The next morning arrived, wrapped in the hush of mist. The orchard looked like it was floating in a dream, each branch outlined in silver light. Emma parked her car by the barn, her breath fogging the air as she stepped out. For once, she didn't rush to check her phone or her notebook. She just stood there, listening to the stillness. Inside the barn, Josh was already at work, stacking old crates against the wall. He didn't see her right away. His movements were quiet, deliberate, as if he'd learned patience from the land itself. "Morning," she said softly. He looked up, surprised but smiling. "You're early. I wanted to see the orchard before everyone gets here." Josh wiped his hands on a rag and nodded toward the door. "Then you should see it from the hilltop. Best view in the county." "I thought I'd stay close to the barn," she said, hesitating. "There's a lot to finish. Work will wait. Sunrise won't." There was something in his tone, not an order, not even persuasion, just quiet certainty. And before she could explain why she didn't have time for walks or sunrises, she found herself following him down a path she hadn't noticed before. They climbed through rows of trees until they reached a clearing, where the orchard spilled into a gentle hill. From there, the world stretched wide and golden. The morning sun was climbing slow and proud, lighting the land like it was being blessed. For a long time, neither of them spoke. "It's beautiful," Emma whispered at last. Josh nodded. "This is where my mom used to bring me. Said it was the only place quiet enough to think." Emma turned to him. "I didn't know much about her. She loved this orchard," he said, eyes softening. "Used to make all kinds of ice cream from our apples. Everyone said she had magic in her hands. She wanted to expand the business, open a small creamery. But then she got sick." Emma's expression changed. "I'm so sorry." He nodded slowly. "Cancer. It happened fast. I was accepted to law school that same year. I stayed home to take care of her." Silence stretched between them, heavy and kind at the same time. "She used to say," Josh continued, "that every flavor she made had a story. Her favorite was apple bacon nutmeg. Sounds strange, right? But it worked. Sweet, smoky, unexpected. She said that's how love is. Never simple, but always worth the risk." Emma smiled gently. "She sounds incredible." She was. His voice broke the faintest bit. "When she passed, I promised my grandparents I'd stay and keep the place running. I thought I'd rebuild her dream, but life got smaller, safer." Emma looked toward the orchard. "Sometimes safe feels like the only choice." Josh studied her. "You know that better than most, don't you?" She met his gaze but didn't look away this time. "My parents worked all the time. They built something great, but it cost them everything else. I promised myself I'd never fall behind, never lose focus. So, I plan everything. It's how I stay in control." "And does it work?" he asked. She hesitated. "It keeps me from falling apart." He nodded, as if he understood exactly what that meant. "Maybe you don't need to hold everything together all the time. Some things get stronger when you let them breathe." Emma gave a faint laugh. You talk like a poet. Don't tell anyone, he said with a grin. I have a reputation to maintain. They stayed on the hill for a while, letting silence fill the spaces that didn't need words. The sun rose higher, turning the mist to gold. When they finally walked back, the barn felt different. Warmer, somehow, alive. Emma looked at the old sign for Moore's ice cream still leaning against the wall. Why did you stop selling it? She asked. Josh's eyes followed hers. After my mom died, it didn't feel right. Making it without her was like trying to finish a song you didn't write. She wouldn't have wanted you to stop, Emma said softly. She'd want people to taste what she created. He smiled faintly. You sound like my grandma. Then maybe she's right, Emma said. You have something people remember. That's rare. He looked at her for a long moment, his expression unreadable. You really believe in people, don't you? Even when they don't believe in themselves. I have to, she said. That's my job. Josh stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the faint trace of apples and cedar on his shirt. You're good at it? The air between them seemed thick and quiet, expectant. For a second, neither breathed. Then, just as quickly, he stepped back. I should check the north fence, he said lightly, grabbing his jacket. Emma nodded, trying not to show how her pulse had quickened. Of course, I'll finish up here. When he left, she sat on a nearby crate, her hands trembling just slightly. She'd come to this orchard to build a brand, to save a struggling business. But somewhere between the laughter, the stories, and the stillness of mornings like this, something inside her had shifted. Later that day, as she packed her things, Martha appeared at the doorway, holding a tray of scones. He told you about Michelle, didn't he? She said softly. Emma looked up. His mom. Martha nodded. She was light in this house. When she died, Josh shut off part of himself. We all did, I suppose. But he's smiling again lately. Emma felt warmth spread through her chest, mixed with guilt and something dangerously like hope. He misses her. Martha smiled sadly. He always will. But maybe he's finally remembering what she left behind. Emma looked out toward the orchard, where sunlight was turning the fields a deep amber. He's not the only one remembering, she said quietly. When she drove back to the city that evening, her notebook sat untouched on the seat beside her. For the first time, she didn't need to write a single rule. Because some lessons don't fit on paper. They live in the heart, waiting to be remembered. The city was loud again, too loud after the hush of the orchard. Emma sat at her desk, surrounded by glowing screens and the constant hum of emails. Numbers, deadlines, and strategies spilled across her monitor, but her mind refused to stay there. It kept drifting back to the hilltop, to Josh's quiet voice under the morning light, and to the feeling she couldn't name. Claire leaned over her cubicle wall, holding 2 coffees. You're miles away, she said, placing 1 cup in front of Emma. And don't try to deny it. You've had the same spreadsheet open for 20 minutes. Emma forced a smile. I'm just distracted. By work. By something. Claire raised an eyebrow. Does this something happen to wear flannel and fix fences? Emma's cheeks warmed. He's just a client. Sure, Claire said, smirking. And I only watch reality shows for the plot. Emma laughed despite herself. You're impossible. Just observant. Claire sipped her coffee and leaned in. So, are you seeing him again? I'll have to. The event's next week. There's still a lot to finalize. Claire's expression softened. Just be careful, okay? You've built everything you have by keeping your emotions out of the equation. Emma looked at her friend, the warning settling somewhere deep. Maybe that's not as good a thing as I thought. Before Claire could reply, Emma's phone buzzed. Nick Reed. The name flashed like a reminder of everything she should want. Success, predictability, security. She answered quickly. Hey Nick, still surviving the week. His voice was calm, confident, familiar. Listen, I'm making dinner tonight. Homemade pasta. You should come by. Emma hesitated. I have a lot too, Emma, he interrupted, gently persuasive. You work harder than anyone I know. You deserve to breathe once in a while. She smiled faintly. He was right. And maybe seeing him would help her clear her head, ground her back in the life she understood. Okay, she said. I'll be there. That evening, Nick's apartment looked like a magazine spread. Minimalist, stylish, expensive. The scent of garlic and rosemary filled the air. He moved easily around the kitchen, confident in his precision. You cook often? She asked, watching him toss pasta with practiced grace. Whenever I can control the outcome, he said with a grin. Law and cooking have that in common. If you follow the recipe, things work out. Emma smiled politely, but the words echoed oddly inside her. Control the outcome. They sat down at the table, candles flickering between them. The food was perfect, the conversation smooth. It should have been everything she wanted. Comfortable, elegant, easy. But it wasn't. Halfway through dinner, Nick leaned back. You know, I could use someone like you at the firm. Organized, strategic. You think ahead. She tilted her head. Are you offering me a job? Not exactly. Just saying we'd make a good team. Professionally. Maybe personally too. The way he said it was careful, polished. Every word weighed. There was admiration, even affection, but not warmth, not depth. Emma smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's flattering, Nick. He poured them more wine. What about you? Any progress with your big country project? She hesitated. Actually, yes. The orchard's coming together. It's special, he repeated, amused. It's a farm, Emma. She bristled. It's more than that. It's history, family, tradition, all the things people forget they need. Nick's brows lifted. You sound like a poet. Maybe I'm learning. He smiled faintly, but the conversation drifted back to safe territory, travel plans, client contracts, business goals. He was everything her list had asked for, intelligent, ambitious, reliable. And yet, as she sat there, Emma realized something painful and undeniable. She felt completely unseen. When she left that night, Nick kissed her cheek politely and said, We should plan something this weekend. She nodded, thanked him, and stepped into the cool air. The city lights shimmered, but all she could think about was the orchard's darkness, the kind of darkness filled with stars and silence, instead of noise and glass. The next morning, she drove back to the countryside earlier than planned. The road stretched before her like a question she was finally willing to answer. When she arrived, Josh was by the fence, fixing a broken gate. He looked up as her car rolled in, a faint smile breaking across his face. Back again already, he said. Apparently, I'm addicted to dirt roads, she replied, stepping out. Good thing, he said, straightening. The city might miss you though, she shrugged. Let it. Josh studied her quietly, then gestured toward the barn. Come on, you should see this. Inside, sunlight poured through the repaired roof beams, catching the dust like gold. Tables were arranged, lights strung perfectly, flowers in mason jars along the walls. It looked magical, warm, welcoming, alive. Emma stopped in the doorway. Josh, it's beautiful. He smiled, just a hint of pride in his eyes. Didn't follow a plan, just went with what felt right. She looked around, her heart tightening in a way that had nothing to do with work. It's perfect. He turned toward her, his voice softer now. You've been different lately, less guarded. I think I'm realizing that not everything needs to be managed, she said quietly. Josh stepped closer, their eyes locking in the slanting light. The best things never are. For a moment, neither moved. The world outside seemed to pause, wind brushing through the trees, sunlight flickering between them. Then Martha's voice called from outside, cheerful and unaware. Lunch is ready. They both laughed softly, stepping back just enough to breathe. As they walked toward the farmhouse, Emma couldn't help glancing at him, the way the light caught in his hair, the quiet steadiness in his stride. There was no plan, no rule for this. and for the first time, she didn't want one. The following days were a blur of work and anticipation. The event was only a week away, and Emma felt pulled between two worlds: the fast, logical rhythm of her agency and the quiet, unpredictable pulse of the orchard. Every evening, she drove out after work to finalize details with Josh and Martha. The barn now looked almost magical, lanterns glowing softly, the scent of apples mixing with wood and dust. Everything was ready. Everything was perfect. Or so she thought. One afternoon, as Emma arrived, she noticed Josh standing outside the barn with a piece of paper in his hand. His expression was tense, unreadable. "Hey," she greeted, setting her bag down. "You look like you just read bad news." He handed her the paper without a word. It was a contract, her updated marketing proposal, printed on her agency's letterhead. Someone from her office had emailed it directly to Martha, outlining a plan to relaunch Moore's Orchard Ice Cream as a branded retail product, complete with nationwide distribution and pricing strategies. Emma's stomach sank. She hadn't approved that version. It was an internal draft meant for review, never for the clients. She looked up. "Josh, I didn't. You didn't. What?" His voice was sharp, brittle. "Didn't plan to tell us you were selling my mother's recipes to corporate buyers? That's not what this is," she insisted. "It's a pitch template. Someone must have sent the wrong file. You expect me to believe that?" "Yes," she said, her voice trembling with frustration. "I care about this place. I'd never turn it into a product line." He shook his head, stepping back. "You said you wanted to help us, but all you care about is exposure, branding, sales. You don't get it, Emma. This isn't a business to me, it's my family. I know that," she said softly. "But helping you grow doesn't mean taking that away." "Then why do I see my mom's name in a spreadsheet?" he snapped. "Why do I see profit margins next to her ice cream?" Emma swallowed hard. "Because that's how companies survive. If we make her recipes part of the story, don't you dare call it a story," he interrupted. "It's not a slogan. It's love. It's everything she was." His words hit her like a slap, not because they were cruel, but because they were true. She had crossed a line she didn't even see. Martha appeared at the barn door, her face full of quiet worry. "What's going on?" Josh turned toward her. "Ask Emma, please," Emma said, trying to steady her voice. "This isn't what it looks like. I would never do anything to hurt you." Martha looked between them, torn. Josh, I'm sure she didn't mean, but he was already walking away. "You trusted the wrong person, Grandma." The words cut deeper than he knew. Emma tried to follow, but he disappeared into the orchard, swallowed by rows of trees and fading light. That night, Emma sat alone in her car long after everyone else had gone to bed. Her laptop sat open on the passenger seat, the contract glowing on the screen. The mistake wasn't hers directly. A junior associate had attached the wrong file, but it was her name at the top, her responsibility, her failure. She rested her forehead against the steering wheel, fighting the sting in her eyes. For once, her perfect lists, her carefully drawn plans, had given her no control at all. Her phone buzzed. It was Nick, checking in. "Rough day?" he asked, his tone casual. "You could say that. Come over. We'll order food. Talk through it." Emma stared at the dark orchard outside her window. "I can't tonight," she said quietly. "Suit yourself," he replied, the distance in his voice unmistakable. "Just remember, feelings don't fix mistakes. Strategy does." When the call ended, she realized how different those two men were. Nick spoke in conclusions. Josh spoke in truths. One made sense, the other made her feel alive. And now, she had ruined the only thing that felt real. The next morning, Emma returned to the orchard early, hoping to explain, but Josh was nowhere to be found. Martha greeted her with a soft smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "He went into town," she said quietly. "Didn't say when he'd be back." Emma nodded, feeling the weight of silence pressed around her. She spent the rest of the morning cleaning the barn, checking details, trying to hold the project together even as her heart unraveled. By afternoon, she was about to leave when Martha stepped inside. "You know," she said gently, "Josh's mother used to make mistakes too. Burned a whole batch of ice cream once because she forgot to add sugar." Emma smiled weakly. "I guess I did something worse." Martha shook her head. "You reminded him of something he's afraid to lose. That's not a crime, dear. It just hurts for a while." Emma looked down. "I wish he'd listen." "He will," Martha said softly, "when his heart catches up to his anger." Emma left the barn just as the sun was dipping behind the hills, turning the orchard gold again. She stopped by the fence, watching the light filter through the leaves, and whispered to the wind as if it could carry her words to him. "I never meant to take anything from you, Josh," she said. "I only wanted to help you see what you already had." The air answered with nothing but stillness. That night, as she drove back to the city, Emma deleted the entire proposal from her computer. Then, for the first time since she was a teenager, she cried, not because she had failed a project, but because she had failed someone who mattered. And deep in the orchard, long after the lights from her car had faded, Josh sat beneath the old apple tree where his mother used to rest, the paper still crumpled in his hand. He wanted to stay angry, to believe she'd betrayed him, but every time he pictured her face, he saw something else instead: sincerity, regret, and something dangerously close to love. The day of the event dawned clear and bright, the kind of morning that made the orchard look like it had been waiting all year to be seen. Rows of apple trees shimmered under the early sun. The barn stood proudly beneath fresh garlands and strings of light, and the scent of cinnamon and wood drifted on the air. Everything was ready, everything except Emma's heart. She arrived early, clipboard in hand, pretending calm. Her team from the city was already unpacking crates, setting tables, arranging flowers. They greeted her with excitement, unaware that the woman giving directions hadn't slept more than a few hours in days. She walked through the barn, checking each detail: the lighting, the ice tubs, the table placements, but her mind wasn't on the event. It was on Josh. He hadn't spoken to her since the argument. She'd texted, called, even left a note with Martha, but he hadn't answered. And now, standing in the very place that had brought them together, she felt the emptiness of his absence in every corner. "Emma, these lanterns?" one of her assistants asked, holding up a string of lights. "They go on the back beams," she said automatically. "Keep the glow soft. It should feel like warmth, not spectacle." As the team worked, Martha entered quietly, wearing a pale blue dress and her familiar smile. "You've outdone yourself, dear," she said, looking around. "It's beautiful." Emma smiled faintly. "Thank you. I just wish." Martha nodded, her eyes soft. "He'll come. He just needs to remember what matters." Emma tried to believe her. By late afternoon, guests began arriving: clients from the city, local families, and even a few reporters. The hum of laughter filled the orchard, blending with the rustle of leaves and music from the small live band near the porch. Emma moved through the crowd with practiced grace, greeting partners and shaking hands, but her mind was half elsewhere. Every time a car turned into the driveway, her heart lifted, and then fell again when it wasn't him. As twilight settled, the barn glowed from within. Lanterns cast a honeyed light over the tables, and the air buzzed with the scent of apple pastries and cider. The atmosphere was perfect, elegant but real, polished but warm. Her team gathered for a quick photo before the dinner began. Claire, who had driven in from the city, whispered, "This is incredible, Emma. They're all talking about you. This could change everything." Emma smiled, but her voice was distant. "Maybe it already has." Claire tilted her head. "You okay?" "I don't know," Emma admitted. "For the first time, I don't have a plan." Dinner began, and laughter echoed through the barn. Guests toasted to partnerships and success. Martha and Henry circulated among the tables, glowing with pride. Even the orchard seemed to breathe easier, bathed in the soft light of evening. Then, As Emma stepped outside to catch her breath, she froze. Across the field, under the fading glow of the sun, Josh was walking toward her. His shirt sleeves were rolled up, his expression unreadable, but his eyes, those steady, grounding eyes, were fixed on her. He stopped a few feet away. "You did it," he said quietly. Emma's throat tightened. "I didn't think you'd come. I wasn't going to," he admitted. "Then Grandma reminded me that stubbornness isn't a virtue." A laugh escaped her, fragile, relieved. "She's a wise woman." "She is," he said. "And so are you." Emma looked down, her voice low. "Josh, about the proposal. I'm sorry. I should have been more careful. It wasn't meant to happen." He nodded slowly. "I know. I read your note. I just wanted to help you," she said. "To make people see what's special here. But I forgot that you don't measure worth in profit margins." Josh's expression softened. "You didn't forget. You just needed reminding." They stood in silence for a moment, surrounded by the hum of music and laughter from the barn. Fireflies blinked between the trees, the air cool and full of promise. "I missed this," Emma said finally. "All of it. The quiet, the space to breathe." He smiled faintly. "You could have stayed, could I? Nothing's stopping you but your own list." She laughed softly, tears catching in her throat. "That list kept me safe. And maybe it's time you let the heart write one of its own," he said gently. The words hung in the air, simple and true. Just then, Martha appeared, her eyes bright with excitement. "Emma, you need to come see this." Inside the barn, a crowd had gathered near the dessert table. The centerpiece wasn't part of Emma's original design, an old-fashioned ice cream cart, freshly painted in white and gold, with a hand-lettered sign that read, "Moore's Orchard Ice Cream, made with love." Emma stared, stunned. "What is this?" Josh stepped beside her. "A surprise," he said. "I found the old machine in storage and fixed it up. Figured it was time we brought it back." Her eyes filled with tears. "You made her recipe?" He nodded. "Apple, bacon, and nutmeg. Just like Mom used to make." Martha handed Emma a cone, smiling. "It's for you, dear." The first scoop. Emma tasted it, and the flavor was everything Josh had promised. Strange, sweet, and unexpectedly perfect. She turned to him, whispering, "It's amazing." "So is she," he said softly. As they looked around, guests were lining up for scoops, laughing as they tried the unusual flavor. The orchard buzzed with joy, alive in a way Emma had never seen before. She felt tears spill over and didn't bother to hide them. "Josh, thank you for trusting me again." He shook his head. "You're the reason this place feels alive. You didn't just fix a barn, Emma. You reminded us who we are." The band began playing softly, a slow melody rising into the night. Emma smiled, wiping her cheeks. "Maybe you reminded me too." "Of what?" "That not everything needs 10 rules to be right." Josh laughed, his hand brushing lightly against hers. "Guess you found the 11th one. And what's that?" "Let go." Outside, the first stars appeared, scattered like blessings over the orchard. And for the first time, Emma didn't think about what came next. She just let herself feel the warmth, the laughter, the taste of apple and cinnamon, and the quiet certainty that something real had begun. The barn had quieted after the laughter and music faded. Only the soft hum of crickets and the faint rustle of trees remained. Lanterns swayed gently in the breeze, casting slow-moving shadows over the wooden floor. Emma stood by one of the open doors, watching guests drift toward their cars, their voices growing distant as they disappeared down the road. Her heart was full and trembling. The night had gone perfectly, but something in her knew it wasn't over yet. Behind her, footsteps approached. Slow, familiar. "I didn't think you'd still be here," Josh said softly. She turned, smiling faintly. "I wanted to make sure everything was cleaned up." He chuckled. "You don't know how to stop working, do you?" "I'm trying," she admitted. "But habits die hard." He stepped closer, hands in his pockets. The light from the lanterns painted gold across his face. "You did something tonight that no marketing plan could ever do," he said. "You brought this place back to life." Emma shook her head gently. "It wasn't me. It was all of you, your family, your mother's memory, the way this place holds love in its walls." Josh looked at her for a moment, and then, quietly, "You're part of that now." The words landed softly, yet they carried weight. Emma felt tears press against her eyes. "You don't have to say that. I'm not saying it because I have to," he said. "I'm saying it because it's true." They stood there for a moment, surrounded by the dim light and the smell of apples and candle wax. The silence wasn't heavy this time. It was full, like the pause before a song begins again. Emma took a step forward. "When I started all this, I thought I was helping you find a brand. Something clean, structured, marketable. And now?" Josh asked, a quiet smile tugging at his lips. "Now, I realize I was trying to find myself," she said. "But I didn't need more plans. I needed to let go." He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his hand lingering near her cheek. "Maybe that's your 10th rule," he said softly. "The 10th rule," she repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stop writing them." Emma laughed through her tears. "That's cheating." "Maybe," he said. "But it's honest." Outside, a soft wind rippled through the orchard, stirring the trees. Somewhere, a lantern flickered out, leaving only the silver light of the moon to guide them. Josh's voice lowered. "You changed everything, Emma. I thought I was protecting this place, but really, I was just holding on to the past. You made me see that letting go doesn't mean losing." She met his eyes. "And you made me see that control doesn't mean safety. Sometimes it means missing what's right in front of you." They were close now, so close that the air between them felt alive. The space seemed to hum with every word left unsaid. Josh took a slow breath. "You know, I made my own list once," he said. 10 steps to getting through life." Emma smiled faintly. "Let me guess. Step 1, fix the tractor. Step 2, fix the fence." "Pretty much," he said, laughing quietly. But somewhere between step 8 and 9, things got messy. She tilted her head. "And what's step 10? He stepped closer, his voice soft but steady. "Find something worth breaking the rules for." For a heartbeat, the world stood still. Then he kissed her, gentle at first, then with all the unspoken emotion that had been building between them since that first clumsy meeting on the orchard road. The kiss was everything they weren't supposed to be, imperfect, spontaneous, unplanned. And yet, it felt like coming home. When they finally pulled apart, Emma laughed quietly against his shoulder. "I think I'm done with lists," she whispered. "Good," he said. "Because I'm terrible at following them." They stood there for a long time, neither wanting the night to end. The barn behind them glowed softly, a witness to everything they'd lost and found. Eventually, Martha appeared at the door, her eyes kind and full of understanding. "You too," she said with a smile. "The apple cider's gone cold." Josh grinned. "We'll reheat it." She nodded and disappeared inside, humming a tune that sounded suspiciously like happiness. Emma looked back at Josh. "So what happens now?" He thought for a moment, then took her hand. "We stop planning," he said, "and start living." They walked together into the orchard, hand in hand, following the moonlit path that wound between the trees. The air was cool and sweet, carrying the faint echo of laughter from the party. Fireflies drifted lazily through the branches, their tiny lights blinking like blessings. At the top of the hill, where the world stretched wide and endless, Emma stopped. "You were right," she said. "This place, it makes you listen." Josh smiled. "To what?" "To what the heart remembers." He squeezed her hand gently. "And what's that?" She turned toward him, eyes shining. "That love isn't found by following steps. It's found when you finally stop counting." The wind rustled through the trees, scattering blossoms like tiny stars. They stood there beneath the silver moon, laughter mingling with the night air, hearts steady and sure. And for the first time in her life, Emma Collins wasn't chasing perfection. She was standing in it. Spring returned to the orchard like an old friend, gentle and unhurried. The frost had melted, the earth was soft again, and the apple trees stood dressed in white blossoms that swayed with every breath of wind. Emma Collins walked between the rows of trees, a basket tucked under her arm, her boots leaving faint imprints in the damp soil. She had traded high heels for something sturdier, traded city noise for birdsong, and in the quiet rhythm of this place, she had found herself again. It had been 6 months since the night of the grand event. 6 months since she'd kissed Josh beneath the swaying lanterns and learned that love didn't follow rules. It grew where it was tended, even when you least expected it. Now, the barn stood as the heart of the orchard once more. Its old wood gleamed beneath a fresh coat of white paint. Wildflowers grew along the fence, and a new sign hung proudly by the entrance. Moore and Collins Orchard, home of love, family, and ice cream. Josh had insisted her name belonged there. She had protested, of course, told him she was only a helper, a visitor who'd wandered into his world. But he had smiled that calm, certain smile, and said, "You're part of this story now. You don't get to edit yourself out." And he had been right. Martha was outside the farmhouse, setting pies on the windowsill to cool. The sweet scent of cinnamon drifted through the air. "Morning, sweetheart," she called as Emma passed. "Josh is out back fixing the new freezer. He says you promised to help taste the new batch." Emma laughed. "That sounds like an excuse to eat dessert before breakfast." Martha winked. "Around here, dessert is breakfast." Emma smiled as she walked toward the barn. The sunlight dappled across her face, and for a moment, she thought about how far she'd come, from a woman who measured life in deadlines and spreadsheets, to someone who measured it in moments of stillness. Inside, Josh was bent over the ice cream machine, sleeves rolled up, his hair falling across his forehead. He looked up when he heard her footsteps. "Hey," he said, grinning. "Perfect timing. I was just about to give up, on fixing it, on waiting for you." Emma rolled her eyes but smiled. "You've gotten good at lines. Occupational hazard," he said. "Running an orchard and falling for the marketing consultant who saved it." She walked closer, setting her basket down. "So, what's the flavor today?" Josh held up a spoon. "Honey apple with a hint of lavender. Thought I'd experiment." She took a taste, closing her eyes as the sweetness melted on her tongue. "That's amazing. It tastes like a summer memory." He laughed. "That's a fancy way of saying it's good. Maybe, but you've created something special." Josh leaned against the counter, watching her. "We both did. You brought life back to this place, Emma, to me." Her cheeks warmed, and she looked down at the spoon in her hand. "You did the same for me." There was a long pause, not the kind that needed filling, but the kind that said, "This is enough." Outside, Henry's laughter carried on the wind as he guided a group of children through the orchard, telling them stories about the old days. Claire had come down for the weekend, helping Martha set up the small outdoor cafe that now served apple pastries and ice cream to visitors. The once forgotten orchard was alive again, not because of profit or strategy, but because people had remembered how to belong. Emma glanced toward the open barn door, watching the light stretch across the fields. "You ever think about how different everything could have been if we hadn't met?" Josh followed her gaze. "Sometimes, but then I remember, life finds a way to cross paths that were never meant to stay apart." She smiled. "You sound like your grandmother." "She's rubbing off on me," he said. "And maybe you are too." That afternoon, the first guests of the new season began to arrive. Families with children running through the trees, couples sharing cones of ice cream, neighbors stopping to chat. The air was full of laughter, the kind that carries warmth even to those who only listen. Emma stood by the barn entrance, taking it all in. For once, she wasn't observing for strategy or improvement. She was simply there, heart steady, eyes full. Josh walked up beside her, sliding his hand into hers. Still making mental notes. She laughed softly. Just one? Yeah, what's that? This. She gestured to the orchard, the barn, the people. This is what love looks like when you stop trying to control it. Josh squeezed her hand. The final rule, the only one that matters. He smiled. Then maybe it's time we wrote it down together. Emma looked at him, her eyes bright with quiet joy. No, let's just live it. They walked together through the orchard, passing under the arch of blooming trees. The petals drifted around them like falling snow, landing softly on their shoulders, their hands, their hearts. When they reached the hilltop, the same one where Josh had once told her about his mother, they stopped to watch the sunset. The sky glowed in shades of gold and pink, the orchard below stretching wide and alive. Emma leaned her head on his shoulder. You know, she whispered, for the first time in my life, I don't feel like I need a plan. Josh smiled, his voice low and sure. That's because you already found where you belong. The last light of day settled over them as the wind carried the soft fragrance of blossoms through the air. The world seemed to exhale, peaceful, content, whole. And there, beneath the endless sky, among the roots and branches of everything they'd built together, Emma finally understood. Love doesn't grow from plans or promises. It grows from faith, in timing, in imperfection, in the quiet spaces between heartbeats. And when you stop trying to control it, it blooms. Summer came early that year. The orchard had never looked more alive. The trees heavy with fruit, the air sweet and golden, laughter echoing between the rows. Life had found rhythm again. On most mornings, Emma woke before sunrise, not because she had deadlines to chase, but because she loved watching the light climb over the hills. She'd stand by the kitchen window with a cup of coffee, the same way Josh used to, and watch the world wake up one soft breath at a time. Sometimes she still couldn't believe this was her life. The city lights replaced by fireflies, the sound of horns traded for the rustle of wind through leaves. What had once been temporary had become home. Down the path, she could see Josh loading crates of apples into the truck. He moved with the ease of someone who belonged to the land. Every motion had purpose, yet none of it felt rushed. He looked up and caught her watching, his familiar grin spreading slow and sure. Morning, city girl, he called. She walked toward him, the grass brushing her boots. You're still calling me that? Until you admit you're not one anymore. She laughed. Never. I'll always be a little city. Someone has to keep you organized. He pretended to groan. You and your lists. They keep you alive. They used to drive me crazy. They still do. He smiled, setting down a crate. You like that? She smiled back. Maybe I do. By mid-morning, the first guests had started arriving, a mix of locals and tourists drawn by the orchard's growing reputation. The Moore and Collins orchard had become something more than a business. It was a refuge, a story, a promise. Families came to pick apples and taste ice cream. Couples wandered through the fields, hand in hand. There was laughter everywhere, the kind that rose from genuine joy, not performance. Emma helped at the small stand near the barn, serving cones to children who looked at the flavors like they were choosing magic. Her favorite moment was always the first bite, the instant of surprise when they realized something so simple could taste like wonder. Martha sat nearby, knitting under the shade of a tree, occasionally calling out to regulars by name. Henry told stories about how the orchard began, each tale slightly more exaggerated than the last, and no one minded. Josh moved among the guests, his voice calm and welcoming. He knew everyone, remembered details, who'd just had a baby, who'd planted a new garden, who'd lost someone they loved. He didn't sell anything, he just made people feel seen. Emma watched him from behind the counter, her heart swelling. She had spent years convincing clients that connection was the key to success. But watching Josh, she finally understood what connection really meant. It wasn't strategy, it was sincerity. That evening, after the last guests left and the sun began to fall, they sat on the back porch with Martha and Henry, sharing a simple dinner. The light was soft, the air full of the smell of grilled apples and herbs. Henry raised his glass. "To another good season," he said. "And to these two for keeping us young." Martha chuckled. "You were never young, Henry. You were born with gray hair." Laughter filled the porch, rolling warm and easy. When the stars began to appear, Emma leaned against Josh, her head resting on his shoulder. The night was alive with crickets and the faint hum of life. "You ever miss the city?" he asked quietly. "Sometimes," she admitted. "But not the way I thought I would. I miss the sound of rain on glass, the smell of roasted coffee on the corner. But not the rush. Not the pressure to be more than I already am." He nodded. "You don't have to prove anything here," she smiled. "That's the first thing you taught me." He turned toward her, brushing his thumb across her hand. "And what's the first thing you taught me?" "To stop hiding behind the past," she said softly. "To let yourself dream again." He smiled. "Guess we're both slow learners." Later, when the house had gone quiet and the others had gone to bed, they walked to the hill overlooking the orchard. The moon hung low and golden, the fields glimmering beneath its light. "This is where it all started," she said. "Where you called my mother's favorite flavor, Brave," he teased. She laughed. "It was Brave. Who mixes bacon with ice cream?" She did. She said people were too afraid to try new things. She wanted to remind them that strange could be beautiful. Emma nodded slowly. "I think she'd like what we built. I know she would." They stood in silence, watching the orchard breathe beneath the stars. Somewhere below, the barn light flickered like a candle, steady and sure. Josh slipped an arm around her waist. "Do you ever think about what's next?" Emma leaned into him. "Not anymore. I used to live for what's next. Now I just live." He kissed the top of her head. "Good, because whatever comes, we'll face it together." She smiled. "No plan, no plan," he said. "Just faith." They stayed there a long time, the world wrapped in silver and quiet. The wind moved gently through the branches, carrying the faint scent of blossoms, even though the season was almost over. And as Emma looked at the orchard, the life they'd built from chaos and courage, she realized something profound. Love wasn't a single moment or a grand event. It was this, the everyday act of showing up, of tending, of believing that beauty could grow in imperfect soil. She took his hand, their fingers intertwining easily, naturally. "You know," she whispered, "if I ever wrote another list." Josh laughed softly. "I thought we were done with those." She smiled. "Just one more. What would it say?" She looked at him, her eyes shimmering under the starlight. "Rule 1, find the kind of love that feels like home. Rule 2, never let it go." He squeezed her hand, his voice barely above a whisper. "And Rule 3, let it grow," she said. The moon climbed higher, silver spilling across the fields. And somewhere between the rustling leaves and the whisper of the wind, the orchard seemed to agree. Because love, like seasons, always returns, softer, stronger, and more alive than before. Autumn crept in quietly, the way change often does, one golden leaf at a time. The orchard glowed in shades of amber and rust, and the air carried that faint, bittersweet scent of endings and beginnings. Emma stood at the barn door, her hands wrapped around a warm mug of cider. The air was cool enough to sting her cheeks, but she loved it. The way the wind whispered through the trees, the way the earth smelled alive, even as it prepared to rest. Inside, Josh was packing crates for the last farmer's market of the year. He moved with steady grace, humming under his breath, a tune that didn't seem to belong to any song she knew. It was just his rhythm, the rhythm of a man who had learned to live with the seasons instead of against them. "How many boxers left?" she asked, stepping inside. "2, he said, smiling. "You don't have to help, you know. It's your day off." Emma laughed softly. "I don't really take those anymore. Besides, I like it here. Even the work feels different." "Different how?" "Honest," she said, looking around the barn. "Everything about this place tells the truth. Josh nodded, pausing to rest his hand on one of the wooden beams. It's strange, he said quietly. A year ago, I thought I was losing everything. And somehow, I ended up finding more than I ever imagined. Emma smiled. You found faith. He looked at her, a faint grin tugging at his lips. No, I found you. Her heart caught on the words, simple, certain, unpolished. She'd spent her whole life surrounded by eloquence and still had never heard anything that sounded so real. Later that day, they walked through the orchard. The grass soft beneath their feet, the trees heavy with fruit, ready for harvest. The world was quiet except for the occasional rustle of leaves and the soft creak of branches. You know, Emma said, when I was little, my parents used to talk about stability like it was a prize. A perfect plan, a perfect home, a perfect future. I grew up chasing that idea. Josh glanced at her, and now I think stability isn't about control, she said. It's about trust. About knowing you'll still have a place to stand, even when everything else changes. Josh nodded. That's what roots do. They hold on, even when the wind's trying to pull everything apart. She smiled softly. You and your metaphors. Hey, he said, bumping her shoulder playfully. You started it. They stopped by the oldest tree in the orchard, wide and strong, its bark darkened by age. At its base sat a small plaque that read, For Michelle, whose love made everything grow. Emma knelt, brushing away a fallen leaf from the plaque. She'd be proud of you, she said. Josh's voice was quiet. Sometimes I still talk to her here. I tell her about the orchard, about you. Emma looked up. What does she say? He smiled faintly. That I'm lucky, and that I should keep listening. Emma's eyes softened. To what? He took her hand. To the quiet. It's where the heart speaks. That evening, they hosted a small harvest dinner with Martha, Henry, and a few close friends. The barn glowed with soft candlelight, and laughter wove through the air like music. The long wooden table was covered with simple food, roasted apples, bread, cider, warmth. When dessert came, Martha lifted her glass. To family, she said. The kind we're born with, and the kind we build. Henry nodded. And 2 second chances. Life doesn't hand them out often, but when it does, you'd better hold on tight. Emma smiled across the table at Josh, and he met her gaze with that same steady calm that had once annoyed her, the calm she now needed. After dinner, when the candles burned low, they stepped outside. The night was cool, the stars bright enough to feel close. The orchard spread out before them, vast and alive. Emma slipped her arms around him. I used to think forever meant something fixed, she said. Like a promise carved in stone. But now I think it's something that grows, changes, breathes, deepens. Josh rested his chin on her hair. Like us. Exactly, she said. Like us. They stood there for a long moment, the kind of silence that doesn't need filling. The trees whispered softly, the world breathing around them. Josh broke the quiet first. Do you remember the first day we met? Emma laughed. How could I forget? You called me city girl and almost laughed me out of your barn. He smiled. I didn't almost laugh you out. I just thought you'd never come back. And yet, she said, smiling up at him, here I am. Here you are, he echoed. And I still can't believe it. Emma leaned into him. You know, I think your mother was right. About what? That strange things can be beautiful. He chuckled. She was right about most things. Then maybe she's still teaching us, Emma said softly. Through this, through us. Josh nodded. I like to think she is. When they finally walked back toward the farmhouse, the path was lit by small lanterns hanging from the trees, a tradition Martha had started that year. Each light represented a hope, a prayer, a memory. Emma stopped and looked at them, hundreds of tiny glimmers swaying gently in the night air. They look like stars that decided to stay, she whispered. Josh smiled. Maybe they did. They reached the porch, the soft creak of the old wood greeting them like an old song. Before going inside, Emma turned once more toward the orchard. The wind carried the scent of apples and earth, the air crisp and full of promise. And in that moment, she understood what forever really meant. Not a perfect ending, but the courage to keep choosing love, season after season. Josh slipped his hand into hers, their fingers fitting like they'd always been meant to. "Ready?" he asked. Emma nodded. "Always." And together, they stepped into the house, into whatever the next chapter would bring. Because love, once planted in truth, doesn't fade. It grows.